Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll make a start. A really warm welcome to the start of what is quite an unusual start to our academic year. I'm sure that all of us were really praying and hoping that we would be able to have an in-school resumption learning, but unfortunately that just isn't the case. So first of all, a welcome to all families returning, though the majority, of course, have been in Hong Kong, and I'm sure you're making the best of it. I'm aware that there probably are quite a lot of new parents here, and we've also got parents sort of moving into year 3, Key Stage 2, so that's sort of quite a change for students coming up from Key Stage 1. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben Dixon, and I'm the head of the Pok Lam campus. Jo Lawfer is also with us today. She's the head of Kowloon Bay, and I'll make some introductions to those who are hosting this meeting a little bit later on. I think the first thing to really sort of share with you is that we have been reflecting and thinking about the home learning offerings across the board. We know it absolutely poses different challenges in very different ways in different contexts for families. Google Classroom is something that's used sort of across the board in many different schools. It's a secure digital learning environment for teachers, students and schools. And it provides a safe way for those individuals to be able to connect, share tasks with students to complete online learning. And we use it from years 3 to 6. That's where students have got a little bit more advanced knowledge. We've actually just rolled out a new platform for reception years 1 to 2 using Seesaw. So we've got 2 sort of true trained platforms going from R to 2 on Seesaw, and then Google Classrooms 3 to 6. And then actually from 6, that helps transition to the senior school where they're also using a Google Classroom. Now we've developed an induction program as part of the timetables for year 3. So year 3 parents, please don't go into panic in terms of that you have to know everything about this. Some elements that are quite intuitive. Some of it does direction, and the teachers have very clearly, through the work that they've done with our team, ensured that we will do this in a measured way so that students aren't feeling suddenly overwhelmed or you're overwhelmed saying, how does it do this? This is just a sort of like an insight into some of the opportunities and elements of what this can offer. And wherever there's an issue, you can reach out to somebody always. And we've got quite a lot of online tutorials as well. So it's a 3 to 6 online portfolio. It's a great way to manage and organize learning. It's an easy to use interface. And it also integrates really well with a lot of sort of apps and websites. And probably you've got children coming to year 3 with my brothers and sisters who've already been using it. Just some introductions for this morning. We've got Clive Dawes here, who is assistant head across the school for technology, and Sam Lehman, assistant head of prep school. Congratulations, Sam, taking your appointment this year, and they'll be co-hosting this. We've also got Anna Karachan, who is a deputy at Pok Lam, and Sarah Lynham, who is a deputy at Kowloon Bay. And I just mentioned Jo Lawfer's here as well, head at Kowloon Bay. We've also got a few teachers, some of our phase leaders who are also in attendance. So plenty, a wealth of knowledge there as we go into the workshop. Please, there is an opportunity to sort of be able to ask questions. And our team will try and sort of filter those. There's also an opportunity to use chat and ask questions. And again, our team will do our best to either answer those verbally or through the chat. That's a really quick way of sort of accelerating the process so we don't sort of have a big sort of bulge of questions at the end. Can I also ask that the questions that you ask are specifically about Google Classroom? There may be questions about the broader element of home learning. Jo Lawfer and I will be hosting some sort of coffee style Zoom mornings next week and the week after. That's highlighted in the K News Bulletin. So and of course, as many of you have been doing, you can email us to ask questions about this. But this is specifically about the application and use of Google Classroom. So hopefully this is going to be really useful for you. And as I say, questions we go along, then please ask away. Great to see that so many people have turned up. And to reiterate, Year 3 parents in particular, don't worry, we're going to hold students' hands in your hands with this as we go through that. So over to Clive and Sam. Thank you for hosting this morning.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all this morning. Sam and I are going to be leading us through the presentation. The outline, what we're going to do is there. So we'll be looking at Classroom, looking at logging in, and just showing you how some of the functions work. Just something to think about is that we are a Google school. We've been a Google school for around 10 years now. It used to be called Google Apps for Education. It's now called G Suite. And Google Classroom is the backbone, if you like, of teaching and learning from Year 3 through to Year 13. So when students arrive in Year 3, they get given their Google account and they start to use Google Classroom. It enables students and teachers to work online collaboratively. It facilitates learning. And if you like, it's a key area of skill development that students need for moving into the workplace. One of the, a key skill for people moving forward in their education into society is the ability to be able to collaborate and learn online. And obviously, we've been doing a little bit more of that than we actually expected to be doing over the last 8 months, but that's the situation. So if you are, a Year 3 parent that's joining us, then, welcome to the journey. Only 11 more years to go of Google Classroom before your young person, graduates and goes off to university probably, and probably uses Google Classroom there as well. So it's the beginning of a well-established journey. We're very lucky now, and then we have a large number of staff who are quite well experienced in Google Classroom and Google itself. So there's a degree of expertise amongst the staff. And I also suspect there's a degree of expertise in your family home. If you've got, students who are further up the school, they will be familiar with Google Classroom and will be, I think, one of the first ports of call for any help that you might need.
Thanks, Clive. And I think myself as a teacher, having used it, it's a very intuitive platform for both the teachers and the students to share work and communicate. And it's the kind of first port of call when we communicate with the students for them to see where their work is placed. It links really well with the Google account. So that's a whole suite of applications, Google Docs, Google Slides, which the children build up their skills with as they progress through the school. It's all privately contained within the school's network, so that any information posted there is private and doesn't go out to the public at all. And as I think Mr. Dixon mentioned, this is used by a number of schools around the world. They estimate around 100 million users worldwide, and it's only growing all the time. And I think it shows how strong a platform is, how resilient it is. You'll see at the top right-hand corner of the shared screen, it's the link for Google Classroom is simply google.com/classroom. Or if you go to google.com, there's what we call the sort of the waffle, the 9 dots in the top right corner. If you click on that, it will show you the different Google applications, and the Google Classroom logo is there. But all of the functions and examples that we've walked through today and looked through at this session are going to be run with the Year 3s as part of their induction to Google Classroom for this next 2 days and next week. So we really want to reiterate that those children will be receiving a very sort of, at their pace, a way of seeing how to access this. And we're just going to go through some of the features today so that you're aware about what the younger children will be looking at, and many of the older students who know how to use it, some of the extra functions that we'll be using too.
Okay, so I talked about 21st century learning skills, and I'm sure that you're all aware that a key skill in 21st century is remembering your username and password, which is a challenge for all of us, and I'm sure we all suffer with that, week on week. So our students in Year 3 get a username and password. They have been already distributed, or will be distributed, I believe. If there's a problem with those, my first piece of advice will be, check it and try it again. Kellett is a difficult word when we first arrive. I always say to the students, if you can't spell it, check your shirt. It's usually on there somewhere. In a home learning situation, that's not the case. But do check the spelling and have another go. If it still doesn't work, then do let your class teacher know, and we will get somebody on it and get it sorted out as quickly as we can. Chrome is the best browser to use because it integrates with lots of the extra things that Google make available, including things like registration and stuff like that. So I would recommend Chrome, if you have it. Username and password. I'm just going to run you through a couple of videos this morning. This is me attempting to log in. So I've created myself a user account called Test User, and you can see this is how I log in. I have to type in the full email address. Okay, I apologize about that. Again, if you want to print that out and leave it somewhere at home so that younger students can see that, and then I have to click my password. If you're on your own in a home learning situation, you can click on the eyeball and it will show you, the password. The first time up, there will be a verification, just an acceptance that you accept terms and conditions. If it works, my first initial will be in the top right-hand corner, and from there I can access, a range, as Mr. Lehman said, the waffle icon in the top right-hand corner opens a range of different activities. And the first key area that students will go to is the Google Classroom page. Now that's available in that 9 squared area at the top right hand corner. And this is Mr. Lehman's classroom stream. So Mr. Lehman, do you want to talk about what's on there?
So this is as I mentioned, this is the first port of call. When the children log into their Google Classroom, this is the home page for it. And I've used my classroom from last year as an example. So you can see sometimes they're personalized to the class with some pictures and things. It's the equivalent of a Facebook news feed where the most recent messages sort of rise to the top. And it's, as I say, it's where the children will first go when they log into Google Classroom, and they'll usually see a message at the top of the screen, which has been shared with the class. Now, different teachers will share their messages in different ways, their morning messages. We're going to show you one example today, but over the day-to-day learning, the style in which those are delivered may change. We are trying to make it as close to a classroom setting as possible, in the same way that when the children come into normal classroom in the morning, they would engage with their fellow peers and with the teacher as well. So this is the kind of landing page in the same sort of way. So on this example, which we're going to show you, I've done a morning message to my students, which a teacher would do. And then I put a little brain teaser just to get the children talking about it, which is what Clive's going to have a go at now.
So when we get to that stream, obviously there are some reading tasks, and Mr. Lehman, as a student, I'm looking at Mr. Lehman's information. There's a lot for me to take in and get ready. So I've got here a brain teaser. So I open that and try and work out what the answer is. I'll just pause that. I'm sure you can all see what that brain teaser is, what the answer is. So I'm going to, a bit of thinking to start me off at the beginning of the day. And then, if you're familiar with Facebook, I get an option a bit down the bottom, so I can just click on and answer Mr. Lehman at the start of the day. He obviously wants to know that, I'm awake and ready to learn. So he's got a bit of a translation for me to tackle, and I think I know the answer. So I'll paste that in. There we go. Remember to turn on my class. And there we go. So we've started off the morning. I've responded to my teacher, and I've also had to do a bit of thinking and answer a brain teaser. So that sort of starts me off at the beginning of the day.
I'll just go back to that, Clive. I think, as I mentioned, different teachers will have different ways of saying hello to the class in the morning. And we also have the Zoom briefing first thing. So that's often where a lot of detail is shared with the children over the video chat. But it's sometimes nice to have something in the newsfeed to get the children discussing, get that dialogue going. Some people ask, well, what if students just copy each other for the answer to the question? It's really just to kind of recreate a little bit of the dialogue in the classroom. So you do get some children saying hello to each other, and maybe guessing the answers to things, sort of getting that energy and that buzz in the virtual environment. If someone posts something inappropriate, we will remind the children throughout the year that everything that they share and discuss on this platform is saved within our school network. And this is a very important lesson for the children about data privacy. We want our children to understand the importance of responsible messaging, permanence of the internet, even though it looks like things might disappear, they always are staying there. And it's really part of our writing curriculum about how the children communicate with each other, with the audience, the purpose, the tone of their writing. So we'll discuss this with the children as the year goes on, all as part of our e-safety program. The children at the beginning of the year also sign a acceptable use policy, and this is discussed with their teachers about how we interact with each other online. And if there was any irresponsible use, this is reported to the phase leaders and to parents. In the same way, inappropriate language or communication would be reported if we were in school.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And students, have done and will continue to make mistakes online, and we tackle that as and when it happens. But from our perspective, making those mistakes online in an area where we can supervise and intervene is much more helpful and very positive, and we can involve other people in that conversation as appropriate. So the stream is one area where students can interact with the teacher. Now we're going to go and look at how task assignment and general classwork are allocated to students. So here on the classwork page of Google Classroom, you can see Mr. Lehman's class is starting to accumulate the tasks for the week. There are some reference tasks on there so that can be visited again and again. So you've got the timetable at the bottom and also the Zoom links directory. So those sort of references, if you like. And then above that, the class activities are divided into different topics so students can refer to them in that way. So I'm going to go on as a user and let's look at how this looks. So, some of the tasks, when the teacher sets a task, they are delivered as well, not only into Google Classroom, but also into my Gmail account. I actually prefer to click on the Google Apps Classroom box and open that. And you can see as that loads, there's my class. Okay, and the stream is on the first tab. If I go back to the top in a moment, you'll see the middle tab is the classwork tab. And if I click on that, I will see the activities that are available to me. I'm still looking through reading all the information that Mr. Lehman's given me, so I need to organize my day. I realize that during the day there are some Zooms that I need to attend. So I'm now going to the piece of work that I'm interested in, and you can see it does try and help me out a little bit with offering me the option to turn it in. Again, I've got some instructions. This is a song review. So not only has Mr. Lehman sent me the task, he's also given me a video to watch and also a bit of modeled writing, if you like, to scaffold my task. My task is in the top right-hand corner. Okay, and if I open that, it will appear. Right, and this is really one of the crucial things about Google Classroom, in that in the top left-hand corner, my name appears. Okay, I know it says test user, but that's really useful for teachers because it automatically creates all 23, 24 versions of the document. So the teacher isn't scrabbling around trying to find out, whose is who, etc., and things like that. So that's, for a teacher, that's really useful. Let's just go back. We'll just fumble around with this. Okay, so that's the first part of the work, and then I actually have to do the work. So if you remember, the task is to write a song review. So I've already done it by magic, as you can see. I'm just finishing it off. And then in the top right-hand corner, I will be able to click turn it in. If you see when I finished, there we go. In the top right-hand corner, have I finished it? Am I happy with it? Quick read through, check through, and when I'm ready, in the top right hand corner, I click turn it in. And that work is then immediately given into Mr. Lehman, and he can mark it accordingly. Okay, here it goes. Do I want anything else to be attached to it? Maybe. Do I want to send a note just to say, you know, I struggled with this bit, or I hope you like it, or can you give me some help with paragraph 1? Okay, so that is a private comment to the teacher, and the teacher can respond accordingly. So again, as a teacher, that's really useful to be able to do that, to be able to get that, you know, to give those documents out very quickly. And one of the key, you know, for a school, one of the key points of using Google Classroom is cutting down on, you know, the huge amounts of paper, you know, as a school that we actually use and consume. So Google Classroom, you know, I think so far since we've introduced it is reducing printing by use of paper by around 10% a year, which can only be a good thing. Sam, this is what you get to see.
Yes, and I'm going to point out there that that wasn't Clive's work. That was the work of a Year 6 student from last year. And that's a Year 6 example. We are going to look at a Year 3 example in a second, whereby maybe if their typing skills are not up to the same level, I know someone was asking a question about this, we can do handwritten pieces, and they can take photos of that. And we're going to show you how they upload that. But the Year 3s and Year 4 students as well, those getting used to the platform, it will be explained to them how to do those processes. And if they ever get stuck, they can always ask their teacher. So to answer that question, which I think someone had posted, if you wanted to handwrite a piece, if the children wanted to complete it in a different way, that is, of course, that is possible. With the Year 6s, or as the children certainly progress from Year 3 to Year 6, we do encourage them to use the typing as much as possible to improve their touch typing skills. It's going to be very useful for them as they go through senior school and beyond. And with that Year 6 piece of work, that was midway through a English unit on looking at sort of rock stars, and they were writing, that was a review, I think, of Total Eclipse of the Heart, which Mr. Dawes had just finished. Depending on the stage in the English work, it'll be marked in different ways. So sometimes the children might be asked to peer mark someone else's work anonymously. Sometimes they might self-assess it according to a rubric that we've shared with the children. In this case, I wanted to mark it with a little bit more detail. And you can see here, this is the screen as a teacher, which I see, which is which children have turned in the work. Turned in is a very American expression for saying submitted the work, and which children it's still outstanding from. And I can see the comments which they've made. So if a child has found it tricky, they can let me know, and I can immediately go into that work and support them as well. So we're now going to have a look at the marking it sort of in detail, the feedback that I might give a child from in Year 6, one of the older children in the school. So here we have the test users account. They're going into their Google Classroom. I've marked their work that afternoon or that evening. And when they go into their classroom page, they'll see the discussion page, the home page, as we mentioned, there's some news feed, and Mr. Dawes is sort of scrolling through it to check if there's anything else which has been posted throughout the day. If he goes into his classwork, he'll see the piece of work that we posted earlier today. I think if he goes into his email, which Mr. Dawes mentioned is another way that they can see where work has been posted, it will appear in both platforms. They'll see that actually I've written some comments on their work, and that will appear if they click on their work in the Google Classroom page or if they go through their email. So Mr. Lehman has returned this piece. Student can open it, and they'll see some private comments on the side. This is my marking just to say things which I liked about the piece, and then I have some comments and suggestions which I'd like them to check through. They can click on their work and see, and this is with a sort of longer piece of writing, this is the kind of level of feedback that the child might get about their work. I've made some suggestions. I've highlighted some things which I thought they did well. I've put some pointers into areas which they might want to check, rather than telling them directly that what they need to change. It might be just sort of saying, have a look at this and think about what you need to change. So Mr. Dawes here has just had some capital letter errors to just go through. This is a huge part of our English curriculum as the children go through the school, is about how they draft, redraft and edit their work. to make sure that it makes sense for the audience. And you can see here that Mr. Dawes is also sort of checking through, seeing some additions which I've suggested, and he can choose to accept those additions or reject them. We do encourage the children to make sure they read it very carefully first, rather than just accepting all the suggestions. Otherwise, they won't catch any kind of errors and misconceptions. And often I've written things like, there's a small mistake here to check. And that's what it's all highlighted for the students. As I said, this is a year 6 piece of work where taught in the summer term at the end of last year. And I think you'll see as the year goes on how quickly your children pick up these skills within Google Classroom and get used to the Google Suite of Docs. It is a very intuitive platform. So as the year progresses, with the induction program that we have in place and the support from the teachers and the learning tech team, it becomes, the children will surprise you with how quickly they adapt to it. So now Mr. Dawes has just gone through, he's checked all the areas. If he wants to, he can also respond to my comments if there was something which he wanted to add. And I think if he's going to go, turn it in again in the top right corner, and he's resubmitted the work. The children have an opportunity to write a comment such as, they might want to say, thank you, which is very polite, Mr. Dawes here, but they also might say something like, I wasn't sure about this. This is fantastic because it means they can say it's privately, not in front of the class. If they were concerned about their work, that message would just come to me, and I'd be able to go and help them, support them if they were unsure.
So that teacher-student feedback and dialogue continues, and in an online environment. As they go further up the school, there's been quite a bit of experimentation with giving that feedback, using audio and verbally online, and there's a little project going on around some of the teachers in science who are using verbal feedback instead of the written feedback to students, as Mr. Lehman just demonstrated. So there are lots of different sort of areas that we can enrich with this platform as it moves forward and as more things become available to us. So we're going on to look at now a slightly different task, and this task is a task that might be some of the year 3s would do. So we'll open this. Now this is a screen movie from my phone, so we might find it not quite so easy to see. So let me just play around with this, hang on. So basically the premise here is that the teacher has given out a sheet for maths, which the student need to, let me just see if I can get that full screen. Okay, so the student has some maths to do, and this is carried out on a piece of paper. So how does the teacher then get to mark the math that's done on a piece of paper? So what we're trying out here is, let's just play this through, is using Google Classroom on a phone. It could be a phone, it could be an iPad. So basically this is a screen movie from my phone. So exactly the same as on a computer, if you like, but a lot smaller. So I've taken a photograph of my work, and I'm going to add the work back into Google Classroom. So obviously it's just working like that. So that's another way that students can feedback to the teacher by using a photo. Now, you could do it with a laptop, but it's a bit tricky to do with the webcam. So in that situation, we used a phone to get the information back to the teacher. So Google Classroom is also an app that works on a mobile device. Students can use an iPad or a phone and log into that as well. And they can do quite a lot of the work that's set for them on an iPad as well as a desktop or a laptop. There are a few tricky things around Google Docs when you're trying to write on something on an iPad. But in general, the app is pretty good. It's easier to use, I think, on a desktop and a laptop, but certainly if you're trying to do some photography or video, perhaps not video, but photography, then you probably can use the phone and the app as well. So I would certainly recommend, if students have a mobile device as well as a backup, they could download Google Classroom and the rest of the Google Suite, Docs and Sheets, etc., because they work quite well on a mobile device too. So
I would say, yeah, I was going to say it's worth mentioning that there are lots of different ways of going about the same process. So you could take a photo on another phone and share that to your laptop and then post it through Google Classroom on the laptop. The children could hold it up to the webcam and take a photo as such, as long as it's clear. But the Year 3 team in particular will work through these steps, and the other teachers as well, when we submit work online, especially at the start of this process, just to make sure children are really confident with how to share a photo or a document which they've done offline and handwritten. Something like maths is a perfect example, because doing your working out is much easier on a piece of paper than trying to do it on the screen. However, some children might want to use a iPad with a stylus to do that, in which case you can send it as a different form of document. The teacher will be able to accept different means through the Google Classroom app and mark it regardless of whether it's been a photo which has been taken and then it can be marked by the teacher, or it can be a document online. There's a whole plethora of ways the children can submit the work, and whenever they're stuck, they can go through it. So I think this troubleshooting page is just about that, reminders that the teachers will explain this constantly and practice with their classes. And if your children are ever unsure, or if you have any confusion, your child comes to you and says, I wasn't sure how to do this, please do ask your class teacher. They had fantastic experiences with it towards the end of last year, whereby I think the school as a whole learned how to use the platform in a very powerful way. So our teachers are experts in using this platform, and they will support the children and parents with using it. Questions can also be asked on Zoom in those meetings that we have with the children in the morning, or can be sent via email. For parents emailing teachers, we ask you to use our @kelletschool.com addresses. So mine would be slayman@kelletschool.com. But if the children wanted to ask their teacher a question, they can ask via the teacher's connect.kelletschool.com address. So mine would be slayman@connect.kelletschool.com, similar to the child's login details as well. The Year 3 technology curriculum is all about their growing independence with this, and the team will be taking it at a pace which is suited to the children for this first initial period of home learning. And as I mentioned, you'll be surprised by how quickly the children pick up the skills, but if they do find it any difficult, we absolutely have the expertise and the support in place to guide them. And we also have a brilliant technology team led by Mr. Knight over here in the prep school, who are on hand to help out with any issues. Things like forgotten passwords and etc. Can be sorted quite quickly. It's just very important to communicate with your class teacher and let them know if there are any problems, and we can solve them for you.
Yeah, so if you move from Year 2 to Year 3, your first port of call in Year 3 wouldn't be your Google site, it would be your Google Classroom for your students' class. As things move forward, other classrooms will also start being used across subjects. So they'll have a Google Classroom for MFL and for art and for PE. So when they log into that app page for Google Classroom, more Google Classrooms will appear as time goes on. And I think, when they get to Year 7, they have, quite a lot of Google Classrooms. Extracurricular activities and sports teams tend to be run by Google Classrooms too, as do tutor groups. So for the moment, we're just creating our Google Classrooms in senior school. And to give you an idea, for Year 7, there are over 1,000 different classrooms being created to facilitate, how the school runs. So it's a huge task going on behind the scenes. And I think that it's been really beneficial. It's really focused our attention, having the online learning period that we've had, how to refine some of the things we do in Google Classroom, and we'll continue to do that. And for teachers, it's an essential tool. It really is. I can't really imagine how we would facilitate all this without a tool like Google Classroom. It's an essential day-to-day device for us throughout the school. So I think we sort of finished the presentation, as it were. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll open it out to questions.
Clive and Sam, first of all, just before we do that, there's been quite a good stream of questions coming through chat. Can we just re-clarify in terms of couple of questions coming through around turning in work and sharing work.
Yes, I'll field that one. We encourage the children, you can share work with the teacher, and it's the same thing. It will send it to the class teacher and it will come up in the class teacher's notifications. But the teacher does receive a huge number of notifications, so sometimes then it can get a little bit lost. So we would always ask the children to press turn in, and that way it's sent to the Google Classroom page and it's really clear to the teacher who has completed.
So clarification is the preference always is please turn in work rather than share it.
Let's press turn in. If the children had done, if your child had done an extra project at home or something which they wanted to share with the teacher, which wasn't to do with the Google Classroom work, something which they'd done in their own time, they could share that with the teacher in a document they've created, and that would still reach the teacher via Google. But for all the class work which we set online, the turn in button is the one which will make it clear that we've received it.
Thank you.
Okay, can I answer a question? I think it's from Gustav about uploading work. Yes, last year we had that last year we had the folder for year 2. I think you'll find that Google Classroom works much better than that. When the student is submitting the task, there's an option to add attachment in Classroom, and that's where you would add any of homework that's not done, if you like, in Google Docs. So it might be, you know, a photograph of a model you've made or something like that, or you've taken in handwrite something you've handwritten in an exercise book. So that would go in as an attachment to the task in Google Classroom. And I think you'll find it easier than you would have done with Google Slides.
Everything within the Google Classroom platform is stored within folders online within our system. So it's kind of hidden behind, but Mr. Dawes is absolutely right. You can share videos, photos, PDFs, everything can be turned in, added in the Google Classroom, and that's the best way for us, for the teachers to be able to see it.
In terms of multiple students using the same device, there are a few questions around that. You can do that. You do need to be strict about logging each student out between the tasks. Otherwise, older brother will look like younger sister, as it were. One way around that is to use different browsers. You could do that. One could be using Safari and one could be using Chrome. I would recommend the older one uses Chrome. But you can do it in the same device. They just need to be careful to make sure that they're logged in as the correct one. They can check the initial in the top right-hand corner to make sure it's them. If you foolishly named your child using the same initial more than once, then I'm sorry, that's the way it is. We've got quite a few children with quite long emails because of that. So just be aware that can be a problem. Again, you could do that on iPad, but they would need to sign out. You need to be quite strict about that. We have had in the past students, uploading work to their brother and sister's teacher, which is what I'm using.
Okay, I think probably some of those questions have been fielded. So can anybody say that orally now rather than not use chat device? Otherwise, if we've got chat device questions, we can email some of those replies. You can just come off mute if there's anybody's got a question they want to share orally. There's
a question from Henry at the bottom, which is about laptop or desktop rather than the iPad. Probably it's task dependent, I would say. If it's a task that can be carried out within Google itself, so it's a Google Doc or a Google Slide, and the students are word processing or designing a presentation, then I think the laptop or the desktop is the better choice. If it involves them taking photographs of something, then I think it's easier on a mobile device. It's quite difficult to pick up your laptop, turn it upside down, etc.
It's a very good question though from Henry, because it's lower down the school, the children it's perhaps more suited
frozen
to different devices and maybe using an iPad. All of the tasks can be done on an iPad or on the laptop. It doesn't matter. It's just about sometimes having the keyboard. So an iPad with a keyboard is for instance, is absolutely fine. It's just for the typing. Certainly the older students find it easier to use a laptop when they have more typing tasks to do. But if you're doing handwritten work and taking photos, an iPad is absolutely great for that. Even taking it on a phone or on a sort of smaller device.
There's a question coming in regarding classroom use of Zoom rather than Google Meet. Again, I think this is sort of taking it slightly off task in terms of focus on Google Classroom. However, we did have a lot of discussions around Zoom and Google Meet. It was a preference. They both got pros and cons. And at the time, we didn't want to start switching services mid-term. It would have added to confusion for people getting around that. Clive, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that question.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Zoom is a specific video conferencing piece of software and is a very good piece of software. Google Meet is also a good piece of software and improving. And you will find that in the senior schools, some teachers prefer Google Meet because it interacts well with Google Classroom, for instance. If I'm using Google Meet, it automatically takes the register when students arrive. So there are some functionality, but we do use Zoom across the school and for lots of video conferencing with parents as well. So we felt a specific bespoke video conferencing piece of software would be better for us to use. Another question from Winnie about saving. Google automatically saves as you go along. There's no save button.
Yeah, if you're not used, when the children get used to Google, they see that, and it still baffles me that every character that you type is saved as you go along, and actually your edit history is also saved. So if you accidentally deleted everything, you'd be able to go back and find it all. It would save every single step of the process. And that's an important message for our pupils in terms of data privacy. It shows how much everything that you post online, if you're typing something on the Google Docs, it will save it and you can restore it. So any messages that you put on there can be sort of seen retrospectively. And with the Zoom, I'll just add, as a teacher using Zoom, things like this, the chat function, which we're using now for questions, is great with the students being able to ask questions privately during a Zoom discussion or sharing things with the whole group without everyone sort of speaking at once. So it has lots of functions on it, Zoom, which I think are really powerful when working with a group of students. I've had that, does Google Classroom link to Zoom? So we will post the Zoom links in a directory in the Google Classroom, which has already been sent to parents, the sort of Zoom directory, which has every teacher's links on it. And within people's classroom pages, they will have that directory also stored if the children need to get to it via a different way. These links, as they are URLs, you can just click on them and they will up Zoom automatically on an app if it's on a device or on your desktop. You don't need to have the Zoom app installed. It can also run in the browser. So if they log into their Google Classroom, they can easily get to their Zoom meetings. Each Zoom meeting has its own different code, and we have waiting rooms. So the privacy aspect of it is very secure, and that makes it very easy for the children to find their meetings and see when they are as well.
Thanks, Sam. I've got a question coming in from Millie. Just in terms of training for children, as we said at the start of this session, we are going to hold the children's hands through this. We might apply a slightly different pedagogic approach to the methodology of how they use it. We wouldn't do a sort of long session like this. It's too much to absorb. The timetable for the first week, the first few days coming in for Year 3 students is going to be specifically tailored to the needs of the classes to explain how they use Google. And they'll often do that through some examples, some fun applications. Presentations such as this would be a bit dry for the students. Yes, we will do it, but we'll do it in a slightly different way. So rest assured, they will be given the training. Okay, folks, I'm going to draw this meeting to a close. Thank you, everybody, for the really pertinent questions that you've asked. They're really helpful. Hopefully, we won't have to use this for too long. We know the best place, of course, is for students to be in the social live learning of classes. Let's please hope and pray that will be resumed very soon. Just one other word of sort of caution on this. Please don't use these platforms for communication about sort of maybe wider brief things. These are for the students, and this is learning focused. We've got emails, for anything other than that communication, and the team are happy to respond to those broader questions. Both Clive and Sam, the team, will be offering this workshop again tonight. These sessions are being recorded, so there will be opportunities to go back for you to listen to them again, like we do with coffee mornings and other things, to make sure there's a sort of an opportunity to retrace some bits you might have missed or you've forgotten. But there's always somebody on hand to help. And I say, can I thank Sam and Clive for a really comprehensive sort of overview. Thanks to all the parents for attending, and I've got a few students there too. Thanks for the questions, that was really, really helpful. So here we go. Packs are in schools, by the way, to pick up the physical learning packs at Kowloon Bay and Pot for Lambs. So please make sure you pick those up. And really a big thank you to everybody for attending this morning. Have a good day. We are now going to close this Zoom meeting. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.